Okay, so back with the fourth part of my Honda Accord Tourer review, and we are still looking at the interior here now. This is the sort of stereo / climate control just sort of main navigation unit. It is quite a busy looking console, and I admit that may not be for everybody, but you know what, it is kind of something similar to what they've done with the BMWs with the whole iDrive feature. This is a very similar sort of thing. So what I'm just going to do is just turn this on, and it's not quite touch screen, which hey, look, that's kind of where everything is going now. But this is an 8-year-old car, so it's it's pretty good for what it is. So if we look at this here, so straight away we have the navigation system up here. This is pretty bloody accurate. I mean, it's not the prettiest looking navigation system, it's quite basic. It's not going to be as good looking as, say, your Google Maps on your iPod or sorry, on your iPhone or your iPad, etc. But it is sufficient, and it is quite accurate. So I have used the map system, I have figured it out. It does look like a lot of work here. I'm not going to go into all the details of it here, but it is pretty damn good. So you can actually use a control to darken it to a night view. You can actually still see it, but it is very faint there. Or you can turn it off completely. And this is the same for things like the stereo control as well. So you can change it to a night view or turn it off. Same with the setup options as well, and I find it is actually a very good looking screen once I've adjusted the contrast and the brightness of it. I do have a few gripes that this volume control is quite small. That seems to be a common thing with it there, and it is, let's face it, it's got a 6 CD stacker, which in 2009, by that point, who the hell is actually using CDs? I'm pretty sure that in the next 10 years CDs will kind of go the way of the dinosaurs. They're not, they're not a kind of future-proofed, I guess, medium, particularly with MP3. But I digress. It does have a 6 stacker here, which I haven't tested yet, so I've got no idea if that works. Climate control, it is pretty cool because it is a dual climate control, so you can have it independent or running simultaneously. I tend to run it simultaneously because it is me, and you do get a great little display up here which gives you, if we turn this on, you've got, we're on high here, we've got the time, the amount of fan coming through. We'll just turn the AC is set to off, and then it does give me my radio station, so I'm just going to show you that there because we can actually adjust this on the steering wheel.
To choose the tunes that play on.
So,
like it's the first day we've had that.
So it is quite
Done really well against
a new chain.
Yeah. So again, we'll just sort of go through there. So on the steering wheel here, just to show you, because I kind of missed this, you do have a few things here. So you can control the mode, so you can switch between FM and whatever are available. You got volume controls, and you can change the channels. I mean, these are pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to go into that stuff too much. On the other side here, you do have a cruise control setting, which, again, I'm not going to explain that much. The manual will tell you all how that works, but it is very intuitive and easy to use. And the cruise control on this thing is actually bloody great. Probably the best I've used it on any other vehicle. Going down to here, we've got heated seats with both low and high settings. I tend to find that the low is quite sufficient, so we don't worry too much about the high. I have heard that the high is just really sort of to be used just to start them off for about 5 minutes and then switch to low just to keep things going there. If you're wondering about the kind of humming noise, that's actually from the external Bluetooth unit I have. There is an aux jack here, and I'll sort of come down here. You have a few things like cup holders in there, and whatnot. There are a few little pockets down here you can carry stuff, and you've got a great dashboard, with a removable tray. So, but this is all sort of by the wayside. Room for your sunglasses up here, and you've got your sunroof controls here, which I'll just briefly go through. So, there's a two-way sliding sunroof, so that does go that way, back and forth, and you can open it, just raise it, close it, and also slide that open. I tend to leave it open because I like a bit of light here. But there are a couple of interesting facts that I want to show you in here. So in the actual glove compartment, and I don't know if you can see that, you probably can't, there's like a there's a vent up there, and you can actually filter cold or warm air depending on what you're running on the climate control here, into both here and also here. So I'm going to take that out now, but I actually do have a drink in here which I can keep cool using that vent. So it's pretty bloody fantastic. In here you do actually have another 12 volt power outlet here, which I'm running an external Bluetooth unit off, and also down there you've got a point for an aux jack. Now these do come with an option to put a USB in. This one didn't. If I visit Honda and get a service, I may get it done. It's not really a big deal. It might be worth doing, but if it's gonna, unless it's actually gonna link straight to the stereo, then I'm not gonna worry about it, because basically I have running the standard sort of USB this is a micro USB, but it also has a lightning cable on it, because the iPhone I have, and with this particular case from Mophie, which if you are using an iPhone I would need a bit of extra battery, then I would thoroughly recommend that this case, totally separate product that I'm pimping here, but this is great because you can effectively just mount this on the dash there with magnets, and it will actually charge it. And that is great because it allows me to send with the Bluetooth through one of the free FM stations. So effectively I can have my phone up here and oh, if I can get the focus right. There we go. And control the stereo from here and here. So that is something sort of I've managed to get around the whole lack of inbuilt Bluetooth. It's not ideal. I came from using a JVC stereo that would run via USB right into my phone, but Bluetooth is good in the fact that I can just get in and out with the car. And the great thing is that this Bluetooth here and this Bluetooth here will run simultaneously, and if I get a phone call, I simply it'll ask me on screen which one I want to answer it with, and I just choose the car kit, because obviously this one here does have it's just like a $20 job I got from Super Cheap Auto, and it isn't the greatest sound quality. There are probably better Bluetooth units out there, but it's sufficient, and the quality of the stereo actually makes up for it here. So kind of one of the last things I want to talk about is this automatic transmission. Now this is a very straightforward automatic transmission. It's in a straight gate, and you've got your drive mode, which is your standard sort of get around mode, and your S, which is I kind of believe for sport. Now this only sort of changes up in the first 4 gears, doesn't go into the 5th gear, but it does give you a longer sort of gear ratios and revs it out a bit more. So if you kind of want to drive this thing a little bit more aggressively, maybe getting on the motorway is great. What you've also got here is you've got these paddle shifters on the steering wheel, so up for going up gears and going down, and just a little bit of how they work. When it's in drive mode, you can manually change the gears up or down, if the vehicle isn't changing for one reason or another, or you want to sort of kick down a little bit without putting your foot down on the old pedal down there. And what will happen is once the sort of the transmission figures out you're sitting there at a sustained speed, it will automatically take over again and change gears appropriately for you. So that's kind of adds you a little bit of manual control without actually having to do too much. In sports mode, this gives you the total manual experience. It's like driving a manual without a clutch, so you need to use these to fully change the gears. And I found that to be quite a satisfying drive, particularly getting on the motorway as well. It has been a great sort of experience in driving that in the sports mode on the motorway. And this thing, I tell you what, it's got a 0 to 100 time of under 9 seconds, which is pretty admirable for a sort of mid-level sort of, I guess, luxury or executive tourer, or station wagon. It is front wheel drive, so it is it's obviously going to be more economical, and you might not have that kind of handling, but I'm actually surprised. It is a very, very well handling vehicle. the steering is great on it. I haven't had any issues with it so far, and it actually handles better than my 2002 four-wheel drive Legacy did, and that's kind of amazing. Yeah, maybe when you're sort of you can't really put your, I don't think you should be putting your foot down, you know, into sharp hairpins or anything like that. You won't get that kind of grip on the road like a four-wheel drive. Like, you will feel it loosen out a bit, but so far I've been very impressed, you know, and that was one of my biggest concerns, was going to a front-wheel drive vehicle after effectively having four-wheel drives, all-wheel drives for 10 years. So you know, it is what it is, really. I don't think there's any other little key features here. It does have, you know, your sort of electronic mirror, so this will darken automatically at night, which is great. The mirrors outside do have fog controls on here. This one seems to work better than this one, which is typical because it's the driver's bloody one. But other than that, it seems to work all right. Overall, they're just a bloody nice car, and they're great, I guess, for someone who wants something that looks professional, modern, tidy. You know, maybe you're like me, you work in an office job, you work in a job where you gotta be well presented. You might have to turn up and see clients or important people, and you want a vehicle which looks that part. You know, so if you take someone in your car, they're gonna be like, hey, this is pretty nice. But at the same time, if you need a bit of extra space, or you want that luxury of being able to throw, you know, sports gear or camping equipment, or, you know, like sort of anything you might want in the back. For me, it's usually you know, things like the dog, which I actually need to get a boot liner for in the back there, and maybe a you know, cargo net kind of. I haven't crossed that bridge yet. And you know, I also play in a band, so sometimes it's putting in those kinds of you know, musical instruments and so forth. But yeah, I think that covers everything off there. If I had to give this thing a rating, I would say probably, you know, on like an A to F scale, it's an A minus. And you know, the only reason I would say it gets points off for is this slightly confusing sort of dashboard scenario with this unit here. It is a lot of buttons, and once you figured it out, it's great. It's sort of fine from there. Just maybe not the most intuitive, but that's really all I can fault it on. You know, that may be the only thing, and maybe just that boot space issue, as we've sort of come across. It may not be the most ideal in terms of space, but you know, look, it is a bloody good looking car. It drives extremely well. It is surprisingly economical, but it has a 2.4 VTEC engine in there, which basically means, you know, if you get your revs up a bit, you know, sort of post about 4K, which is great when you're accelerating on, but you do notice it, and it does kick in a bit, and it is a great handling. It's very responsive. Points could, you know, the brakes are great on it. Points could probably be, you know, deducted for the steering, which does feel a little loose in some places. But again, it just depends on how you're driving it. For someone like me who isn't really an aggressive driver anymore, then it's fine. But listen, if you've got any questions, or you know, things you want to ask, or you know, if you're thinking of buying one, you know, feel free to ask me a question. I'll happily answer when I can. Now, I looked into these for quite some time before I finally came to the conclusion of purchasing one, and you know, I don't regret it at all. I think it's, as I say, it's probably a solid A minus for me. You know, it's very funny because it's, you know, it's not something I would ever see myself in, but you know, look, Hondas, they're solid, they're reliable, the engines are very easy to work on, and you know, this is coming from my dad and several other mechanics I've dealt with who just say, look, you know, they're right up there with, you know, that sort of, people talk about that tolerability, but you know, reliability, but you know, there also seems to be a big argument these days for a lot of these, and that's where you see a lot of people driving around, and you know, in the you know, in the CRVs and the Civics particularly, simply because they just are solid, reliable, you know, naturally aspirated front wheel drive 4 cylinders. Yeah, so any questions, please feel free to post in the comments, but hopefully that has helped you out a bit if you are looking to purchase one of these. Yeah, cheers.